everybody. I'm Jesse Waters, along with Dr. Nicole Sapphire, Juan Williams, Dana Perino, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. A major Senate showdown over if America will hear from both Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh and his accuser. Senate Republicans setting a hearing for next Monday, but Democrats are making new demands. They now want more time, more witnesses to testify, and for the FBI to investigate the 36-year-old allegation. President Trump reacting to it all earlier.
You don't wait till the hearing is over and then all of a sudden bring it up. When Senator Feinstein sat with Judge Kavanaugh for a long period of time, a long meeting, she had this letter. Why didn't she bring it up? Why didn't she bring it up then? Why didn't the Democrats bring it up then? Because they obstruct and because they resist. That's the name of their campaign against me. They're lousy on policy, and in many ways they're lousy politicians, but they're very good on obstruction. We should go through a process because there shouldn't even be a little doubt.
And lawmakers are trading blows over how this process is playing out.
It is still disturbing, however, to think about the way in which this is developed right at the end. And it's pretty obvious this is all about delaying the process.
We cannot continue the victimization and the smearing of someone like Dr. Ford. And you know what? She is under no obligation to participate.
We wouldn't find ourselves, nor would Dr. Ford find herself in this situation if Senator Feinstein hadn't sat on this letter she's had since July.
I think the nomination should be withdrawn. He has raised serious doubts about his credibility.
While so far Republicans say lawyers for Christine Blasey Ford have not responded to their invitation for her to testify. And Mark Judge, the other person alleged to be in the room, says he doesn't remember the incident or the party and will not testify. Okay, so before we get into the political stuff, I want to ask the doctor a question, and Dr. Gutfeld brought this up yesterday about the memory situation. So tell me what you think about this as a licensed professional. She doesn't really recall how she got to the party. She doesn't recall the house that the party was thrown in, and she doesn't recall how she got home from the party. She's a little fuzzy about the people that were there at the time, and there was some discrepancy with the notes that her therapist took. And she admits that she was drinking. Now, with that said, she believes, and I believe she believes, that something happened that night. But what role does memory play in the passage of time with an allegation this serious?
It's a great question, and let's be clear, I'm not a psychologist, psychiatrist, or involved in this case whatsoever. That's my medical disclaimer. However, it is a well-known fact that people, when something traumatic happens to them or something that happens a long time ago, like when you're in your doctor's room and they deliver some news, that the moment you leave, you don't necessarily remember the details, you don't remember the facts. Add a not fully formed frontal lobe, add alcohol, and then add 36 years to that, and obviously details can get muddied a little bit. Do I believe something happened to Dr. Ford in her adolescence? Absolutely. I don't think anybody's ready to deny that whatsoever. But I do think it's interesting that the party of Bill Clinton and Keith Ellison are trying to lecture America that we need to have a potentially politically motivated allegation should derail an entire process here. And I have concerns about that because we want to ask questions, get answers, but she doesn't have the answers. And so it's going to go into a he said, she said.
Well, here's the problem, though. So she says she can't remember some of the details that Jesse rightly laid out. But he says of a party that nobody remembers the details, that he wasn't there. Well, that's not logical. Wait a second. So nobody knows exactly where the party took place, and you don't remember being there. Well, how can you wait, that didn't make sense.
But Juan, that's the trick, and it's you can't blame if you say you did this to me. I can't tell you when or where, because then if I do, you might be able to say I wasn't there and that wasn't me. So you leave that intentionally vague,
no,
right?
I would think that I would say that never happened.
But he did say that.
No, but he also said I wasn't there. That was the problem in my mind.
Well, that's why he knows he wasn't there, because it didn't happen.
But I would say that the other point is that, you know, having watched this before in my life, I just think it's proper to say that it's very difficult, given what Dr. Singer was saying about memory. very difficult for people who have been traumatized and hurt then to come forward in the first place and know they're going to be pilloried. That
Right.
she's in the arena right now. You
Big
could
time.
not be more at the mountaintop with arrows flying from every direction.
But there's a difference between skepticism and pilloried. Everybody has if everybody can go on social media and condemn something, people can go on social media and question something. And I think that, like, even like Senator Blumenthal, he should know better about the fallibility of memory. This is a guy who, sincerely, I will give him that, believed he went to Vietnam. But he actually didn't go. We change our memories. I said it yesterday. Our memory is Play-Doh. But I will say this, to your point, that goes both ways. Her memory has gaps, and so could his.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
so that's why something has to be reported when it happens. This is the problem. You can't relying on something that happened 3.5 decades ago in the court of public opinion means every single human being on this planet is vulnerable to this thing.
And the Democrats, Dana, said they want the FBI to go back and investigate this. But the FBI has said this isn't really something we do. This is something a local law enforcement would do. What's the play here next?
Well, if you want to learn a little bit more about the FBI piece, Kim Strassel of the Wall Street Journal had a series of tweets today explaining the FBI's jurisdiction, its role, and how it does background checks. There's been 6 of them on Brett Kavanaugh in the last 15 years.
6.
Not ever come up before. This is not a jurisdictional issue for them. It would have been local law enforcement. The Democrats are saying the FBI needs to reopen it. And the FBI is like, well, what would we do? So now you have a situation where the senators have said on the Republican side, we'll have another hearing. We'll do it Monday. We'll do it quickly because Brett Kavanaugh says, I'm anxious to clear my name. They still haven't heard from Dr. Ford's lawyers or from her as to whether she will show. The senators also said, you don't have to do it in open hearing. We can do it as a closed session. So you won't have to worry about this idea that you're going to be paraded around and there will be some kind of a circus. And I am curious about one thing. Senator Hirono, the Democrat from Hawaii, she said that Dr. Ford is under no obligation to prove anything. She doesn't have to say anything. Well, then why then is the burden of proof on Brett Kavanaugh? And if it is on him, then let him testify. And if she doesn't come, I think that they do what they can to try to get the information. And if the Democrats decide that they're going to vote against him, which they already said they were going to, call the vote.
Well, Orrin Hatch says he doesn't believe her. I mean, I think that's premature. But I do think that in most cases like this, and so let's try to step away from the politics for a second, if there was such an incident, an assault, typically you would have somebody from the local police, special victims, go in there and try to figure out what actually took place.
Right.
So in this situation, I think it cries out, given all the political static in the air, for somebody to say, here's what we were able to discern by talking to people, It just hasn't
that's
happened.
what a hearing, closed or open,
Oh,
where
no, I
both
meant
of
the
them
FBI.
testify.
I meant like some law enforcement people.
But what
away
would they
from the
say
process.
36 years ago?
I don't
Who would
know.
they speak
Nobody knows
to
where the party
besides
was,
the
or
2
even- they
people
don't even
that
know
were
the
allegedly
year.
there?
They don't even know the year that the party was supposedly
Oh, I thought they
held.
did know the year because she was 15 and he was 17.
No, they're iffy on the year.
But if it was a local law enforcement issue, the statute of limitations have way expired. So I don't even think you could even prosecute a crime if there were a crime in this party.
But it's not about prosecution.
Right, but I'm saying if you were to even look at it in that way.
This will set a guilty until proven innocent precedent if this successfully derails the nomination.
But that's why she says that when Senator Hirono says that the accuser is under no obligation, and we are to just, okay, then what are we supposed to do? Just to say, okay, well, there's an accusation with that something happened, but we don't know all of these details, and therefore,
well, this is exactly what
no
the
one's allowed
Democrats
to ever
want,
go forward.
because you can't prove or disprove it. It's just out there now, and it's out
and
there
Jonathan
for the
Turley
American minds.
said that the tie goes to the accuser. So if it's he said, she said, that the tie goes to the
Wasn't the
accuser.
only
Is
one.
that
Yeah.
is that the new standard?
This is there's a certain kind of public display going on where people are saying that if it's he said, she said, it must always be she said. If that's the case, then we don't really need to have courts anymore. We can just do a priority of innocence on what group is more innocent than the other and get rid of courts. This is about winning for a party at any cost, and the cost is perhaps ruining a life. I saw a headline, I won't say where it's from, that said the headline was this: Are Republicans really going to nominate an accused rapist to overturn Roe?
Right.
Okay, so think about, I would ask the people on both sides, imagine if this was your son, dad, or brother. We often think about, victims, but would you characterize this as fair with the knowledge that we have right now? Is it fair to characterize somebody that way if that is your husband, your brother, your son, or your father? And I think sometimes, well, all the time in politics, we don't think that way, and we will ruin somebody's life just so we can get somebody on the court.
In the Me Too era, this has become a little bit more common than we've seen in the past.
Yeah, I was going to say I agree with you that, to me, though, the thing about it is, historically women say, men, you don't get it, you don't hear us, you don't listen to us, right?
That's true.
And then you get this cultural surge. I saw it with Anita Hill, and I'm seeing it again now. It's a different era. But it's, again, do we as men listen? Do we hear? And it's very difficult because this is about culture. You said it's just about one side winning. I think, by the way, you could reverse it, that Republicans just want to get this out of the way and have their majority.
But how can you hear if they're not willing to come and talk?
Well, that's the question. Right. You raised an important point today. Is she willing to testify? We thought she was. Now her attorney won't say.
And also, just because you're skeptical does not mean you're not listening.
Right.
You may be really listening.
Right.
More listening as much as possible. Because I said this before. I believe something happened, but I believe memory is having an effect, either with him or with her.
Well, the
It's
whole
not
world
misogynistic to
is going to be
question it.
listening on Monday because it's going to be one for the history books.